Engine 103 rounded the corner and found 3 floors of the 7-story vacant building fully involved, and Lieutenant Louis Galante called for the box. Although young, Galante was not afraid to make a decision, and in time became Chicago's fire commissioner. As the fleet of snorkels begin to position themselves around the building, Commissioner Quinn, with his unmistakable helmet, arrives and takes charge. There is no stopping this fire. It's a Chicago-style general alarm and quickly goes to a 511 with 4 specials. Before the day is out, more than 350 firemen will be called to this fire. The transformation of a once prosperous brass and copper manufacturing factory to an abandoned shell within the Chicago slums occurred over time, and in its final moments has become a glowing reminder of the city's decay. The fire has full possession of this building, and even the mightiest streams evaporate as the fire destroys the building, floor by floor, and wall by wall. The fire is visible for miles, and the strong lakeshore winds start to pick up, spreading the dense clouds of black smoke throughout the city. To the south, portions of the Eisenhower Expressway are forced to close. The collapse of the interior floors and walls leave the exterior walls without any lateral support. As the exterior walls start to give way, hose lines and apparatus are repositioned outside the collapse zone. The CFD knows that this building is lost, but defeat in the fire service is never taken well, and the fight is continued. More lines are laid, and more deck guns go into operation. Nearby streets become congested parking lots as cars are trapped by apparatus and hose. Almost exactly 1 year from now, on April 4th, 1968, the Chicago Fire Department will have to face an even larger challenge: the massive fires spawned by the Chicago riots. Friday rush hour traffic was heavier than normal and got far worse when an automobile suddenly cut in front of a truck on the elevated expressway near 18th Street. The truck driver swerved to miss the car, saving the life of the careless driver, but lost his own when he couldn't recover and smashed into the massive concrete wall. While the heavy crane sets up to stabilize the overhanging vehicle, the chief orders a lead-out down the off-ramp and under the highway to the nearest hydrant to control the leaking gasoline. Working from the snorkel basket and ground ladders, the slow, unpleasant task of extracting the heroic truck driver begins. Prior to the invention of the gasoline-driven jaws of life, the arms of firemen powered the hydraulic extraction tool. After cutting away various parts of the truck, the removal of the driver is finally accomplished. Though it will be some time before the highway is reopened. The flexible work platform provided by the snorkel made this difficult task possible. It came without warning. Rescuing their fallen comrades is now all that matters. Working frantically, William O'Connell is dug out of the debris and rushed to the hospital. As the fire rages out of control, there is no sign of the two men that were working on the roof just moments earlier. From the snorkel basket, firefighter Gene Gilbert is spotted through the heavy smoke. As he clings to the basket, Gilbert is lifted off the roof. His partner, Gary Desher, has fallen into the building and is pinned under a steel I-beam. It will take 3 hours to reach him. He is found alive, but seriously injured. Tragically, Desher will later die at the hospital. From the words of Commissioner Quinn, "It was the greatest rescue effort in the history of the Chicago Fire Department, and I commend the fine firemen who worked harder than I've ever seen anybody work to free a man." The war on fires was growing, and the CFD needed a new weapon. Under the leadership of Commissioner Quinn and the Chicago Civil Defense Volunteer Fire Department, a new weapon was conceived: an artillery-sized turret wagon. 3 such monsters were designed, built, and operated by the Civil Defense Volunteer Fire Department. The various rigs assumed the names Big Mo, Big John, and Little John. Big Mo is seen hard at work at the enormous Ford City warehouse fire of '68. This 140,000 square foot fire required more than a third of the CFD's fleet and over 400 firemen to bring it under control. Smaller than Big John and larger than Little John, Big Mo went into service in the '60s. It was equipped with 2 fireboat turret nozzles tied to 32 inlets and was capable of flowing over 8,000 gallons of water a minute. These units were only called out for big fires and were designed to get large water streams into operation quickly with minimal manpower. At one fire, Big Mo was used to shoot 1,700 gallons per minute of water 230 feet into the air to fight a fire on the 17th floor of a high-rise building. Big Mo started off on a 1962 Willys Jeep, but the Jeep was too small to be able to handle the weight of the turrets. The guns and piping were then transferred to a 1952 military surplus 6x6, and then a 1951 GMC chassis. Big Mo was originally painted in the traditional Chicago colors of black over red, but in later years carried the civil defense colors of blue over white. Quinn was chief of the Chicago Fire Department and director of civil defense. Realizing the benefits of having an effective civil defense auxiliary fire department, he reopened a closed firehouse and staffed it around the clock with volunteers that would respond with a variety of specialized equipment to any fire in the city of Chicago. Though the volunteers were not always accepted by the rank and file, Quinn made the CDFD into a useful extension of the Chicago Fire Department. Big Mo could certainly do the job, but there was always one drawback: finding enough hydrants to supply all 32 inlets. The morning of October 10th, 1972, became a day of tragedy when a 4-car, modern commuter train overran the 27th Street station. Attempting to back up, the bi-level train was hit from the rear by an older-style 6-car commuter train. Heavy equipment is brought in to help stabilize the train. With can opener-like tools, the rescuers try to open the commuter train to reach the trapped passengers. The work is slow, and some of the passengers will have to wait over 6 hours, some even hanging upside down, before the firemen can reach them. Mixed within the crowd of spectators, friends and family quietly wait for news.
Not physically working here, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Everybody back behind the
Yes,
rope
sir.
while they're cutting people out of the train.
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you.
You first, sir.
Thank you.
Will you please step up? Hey, get off of there. What? Come on, get off of there. You guys, come on, you nuts?
Surgeons, working on top of the wreck, give rescuers advice, and later enter the cars to apply tourniquets and splints and give blood transfusions to the trapped passengers. The scene was described as grotesque beyond belief. Human limbs were hanging out the windows, and everything inside was bloody. The train station was turned into a triage center, while 19 CFD ambulances were sent to the scene along with the department helicopters to transport the victims to the hospitals. The wreck occurred at 7:27 a.m. There were over 1,000 people on the two trains. 44 of them died, and 350 were injured. By 3 p.m., partial rail service had been restored to handle the afternoon rush hour traffic. On New Year's Eve, 1968, Box 8454 was transmitted at 4:06 p.m. for a fire in a two-story vacant brick building. This was to be the 7th extra alarm fire since the extreme cold weather arrived a day earlier. Although the sub-freezing temperature slows the operation down, an aggressive attack is begun. Commissioner Quinn is on the scene and learns that 4 firemen have already been taken to the hospital. The snowfall has stopped, but the hose streams are still freezing up. More lines are stretched as the fire takes possession of the entire building. Soon, it is realized that firefighter James Fisher is missing. Assigned to Truck Company 47 as a tillerman, Fisher had been temporarily detailed to an engine company. Although last seen inside, the building is so unstable that no immediate search and rescue operation is possible. It has been only 24 days since firefighter Desher was killed in the bowling alley collapse. It will be the next day before firefighters are able to enter the building to recover Fisher's body. The men can barely move in their coats of ice. The only streams still in operation are from the deluge guns. Even an Eskimo would find this Chicago night miserable. Ice is now as much the enemy as the fire, and if one stops moving, can actually become frozen to the ground. Positioned in the front, Engine 70, like the building, has become a monument of ice. Traffic is redirected at the Cook County Criminal Courts and Jail Complex as a special call is made for assistance from the CFD. From the 6th floor window, a man hangs between two window ledges. It appears that an escape plan has gone awry, and the escapee, as he smokes his cigarette, decides it is now in his best interest to become a jumper. While an officer distracts the jumper, a plan of rescue is formulated. Snorkel Squad 2 and a life net are set up below. The men below wait patiently. Suddenly, the jumper's legs are grabbed from both windows. As he is held in place like a wishbone, the snorkel comes up from behind. Chief Smith of the 11th Division stated that the 250-foot grain elevator, located in the Erie-Lackawanna Railroad Yard, burned like an enormous Roman candle. Endangering 20 other grain elevators and 4 diesel tanks, the 2-hour fire quickly escalated to a 511 plus a special alarm. There was virtually no water in the immediate area, and relay pumping was required to get streams into operation to protect the exposures. This is what is known as a photographer's fire. Seeing the massive fire, neighbors helped the firemen stretch hose lines.
Okay, they're working on it. They're doing their best. Put that fucker away or I'll bust him. Hey. We can run through them.
Flight 553, originating from Washington, D.C., was on final approach into Midway when the tower ordered the pilot to abort his landing and try again. Eyewitnesses said the plane accelerated its engines, but couldn't gain altitude. The plane, with 61 souls on board, dropped like a stone. Upon impact, the Boeing 737 burst into flames. It had just missed the Queen of the Universe parochial school, but crashed into a dozen homes near 70th Place and Lawndale, just southeast of the airport. As soon as the neighborhood realized what had happened, residents were running out with towels and blankets to help the survivors. Of the 61 people on board, 43 perished, along with 2 women on the ground. The 311 will be struck out at 5:45 p.m., approximately 3 hours after the crash, but the operation of body recovery and overhaul will continue throughout the night. Investigators were still at a loss to explain what went wrong on what appeared to be a routine flight. At the time of the crash, there was a 500-foot ceiling and 1 mile of visibility, both within the allowable limits for a landing. This was the first United Airlines fatal crash with the 737 since it started using the aircraft 4 years earlier. Identified by the oval insignia on the back of their coats, the CD volunteers are easily recognized working alongside the CFD. Though the heavy fire showing in the center building has already extended to the homes on both sides, this is still a bread and butter fire for Chicago. While aerial streams are established, hose lines are directed onto the fire and the exposures. Men on the hand lines between the houses quickly withdraw when the deck gun in the alley opens up. Water is now flowing on all four sides of the fire, and the snorkels are all in operation. Today, the Chicago Fire Department has won the battle, but the war against fire never ends. In the 60s, in addition to special calls, rescue companies were booked into virtually all greater alarm fires and on first alarms in target hazard areas as well. Most rescue companies caught a working fire or two every day. Although on the box to provide special skills if needed, rescue companies were routinely used to do truck work, especially if it involved opening steel shutters or forcing high-security doors or gates.
The old-timers still tell the stories, but few of us have actually seen what these firemen faced. The Aaron's Fox Video Library exists to preserve and share these actual images of days gone by. We are constantly searching for good vintage film footage of fire service activity. Please contact the Aaron's Fox Video Library if you have or know of material that you think should be preserved and shared.
To order other videos or receive a free catalog, call 1-800-717-2244.